Microphone's working. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to what we are calling the first annual MLCC Community Coalition Town Hall. We're starting a conversation and we're going to continue the conversation. So thank you for coming. We've got the group that came here and then we've got a group on Zoom. We are recording this so that it will be something that we may make available down the line for other people if they want to see the presenters. We've got a lot of things to go over, and a lot of education and a lot of great speakers for you tonight. We are going to ask everybody hold the questions and comments to the very end. We're going to get through all of those amazing speakers and all the great information they have, and then we've left time at the end. But as I said, this is the start of the conversation. We meet every month, the third Thursday of every month. This MLCC Community Coalition meets in person, hybrid, or Zoom. We've done kind of it all to try to allow the community to join and bring a voice and tell us their perspective, because that's what a coalition is. It's about your perspective and what you want to do and how we're gonna help stop substance abuse in our community and starting with our youth. So please know that this conversation will continue and we want you to come to these meetings. So myself, my name is Alicia Devereaux. I have lived in Moses Lake for coming up 9 years. I am the chair of Moses Lake Community Coalition. I'm in my 3rd year. I won't go into my personal story, but being a part of the coalition was something that mattered to me. I have young children who are now not young children, but teenagers. I see things going on in our community. I see things going on with their friends, and I was looking for something. I was just looking for something. What can I do? And I found the coalition. So that's what brought me here. And I hope that is what brought you all here too. Our agenda. We're jumping around. You want to jump to the slides? I don't know where you go. So our agenda, we're going to have presenter Mariah DeLeon. She is the harm reduction program coordinator. Then we're going to have presenter Bethany Austin. She is our recovery outreach specialist. Then we are going to have Lynn Felkner. She's a firefighter and paramedic. Then Noki Pando, he is another recovery outreach specialist. And then we're going to have Jimmy Garcia and Fernando Galarza. They are behavioral health outreach. And then Megan Watson, our coalition coordinator. And then we're going to have some community discussion. The other thing we're going to do as we go through is we're going to have an opportunity for you to participate. We're going to ask questions, and as I said, we're not going to start the conversation right now, but we're going to allow you to pull up your phones because everybody's got a phone, and you're going to join something called Menti. Going to pull it up, and you go to menti.com, and she's going to give you a code. And what's going to happen is when we present a question, you get to vote right then and there. Anonymous, give us your take, and we will immediately get the results. And it's something that we will notate, and then we can have that conversation at the end, how those results came through. Welcome, come on in. Thanks for joining us. I only make you sing if your phone rings. Just so you know, soft kitty works good, so does in a pinch. So again, if you go to menti.com and you put in that code, it'll link you to what we are doing right now. And then as those questions come up, you will have that opportunity to vote, and then we will immediately show you the results, but we won't go into the discussion of it. Right. You want to give it a couple minutes for the Menti, or can we go to the first questions? Is that when we go first, or go to the presenter first?
Question first. The Menti is on every screen.
Okay. You want to do one question presenter? Or are we going through all of Menti first?
Yeah, it's like Menti question and presenter and Menti question.
All right.
Let me get the rest of it.
How's everybody doing? Menti up?
Looks like it's the
First slide.
Got it.
All right. So here is our first question. Is there anyone in your life that you care for that has issues with substance abuse? And yes, and these are already our results. Megan, are these results already in real time happening? So people on Zoom might have saw it already. All right,
Yes,
people are already voting for it, guys. For real-time results and the people that are attending, so it tells us that people are attending because it matters and there's something going on in their life. So the next one is on me.
Mhm.
All right, our next question.
It takes its time on the screen.
That's
There's a
okay.
delay.
That's okay.
They should see it on their phones too,
If you
though.
see it on your phone, you should see what percentage of people in the United States misuse drugs.
Could you please speak louder?
Okay. So the next one is what percentage of people in the United States misuse drugs?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Does that include alcohol?
It's kind of an open interpretation.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, we're talking about substance abuse.
Pretty much all across the board, and then we'll hear the actual answer here in a minute.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to invite Miss Megan Watson, our community coalition coordinator, to come up, and she's going to speak to some of these statistics and give you some real facts and real information.
Thank you. All right. Oh, okay. Good evening. My name is Megan Watson. I'm Coalition Coordinator for the Moses Lake Community Coalition. Just want to thank everybody for coming. And you saw our next question, so we are going to start this evening with just a little bit of data. Don't wear out on me, I promise. We're only going to spend a few minutes here. It won't be so bad. But our first data point, the question we were just asking, according to SAMHSA's National Survey on Drug Use and Health, and for those that don't know, SAMHSA is our state agency, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They keep track of all these numbers. So according to SAMHSA, it was a national survey, and among people aged 12 years and older in 2021, which is a little bit older data, as you can imagine. 2022 looks pretty different. But in 2021, 61.2 million people in the United States, which is about 22% of the population, used illicit drugs in the past year. I like to put that in just a little bit of perspective. That's 1 in 5. So, you know, take a look around the room. You can see how many people are in here, about 1 in 5. The next data point is 46.3 million people 12 years or older, which is about almost 17% of our population. They meet what's called the DSM-5 criteria for having a substance use disorder. The DSM-5 is the standard that's put out by the American Psychiatric Association for diagnoses of different types of illnesses, mental health illnesses, and that comes down to about 1 in 6. So about 1 in 6 people that you see on an average basis actually qualify as having a substance use, a diagnosable substance use disorder. 9.2 million people 12 years and older have misused specifically opioids in the past year. That's 1 in 30. That is definitely something that we see on the rise, in particular with the introduction of fentanyl into the society. It is more and more. And the last data point I just wanted to show is a little bit of perspective. I mean, whenever we think about people who have substance use disorder, our minds automatically go to, well, they should get treatment. There is a host of reasons and barriers that would make that difficult. We're going to hear about that tonight. Some things that we can do as a community to remove some of those barriers, because as it stands right now, about 94% of the people that have a substance use disorder don't actually receive any treatment or services. And there are things we can do as a community to help improve that statistic. So now I will pass it over to Mariah Gilliam. She's going to talk a little bit more about some data. Mariah.
Hi, everyone. So, my name is Mariah Leon, and I'm with the Grant County Health District, and I serve as the harm reduction coordinator. So we work on overdose prevention and helping people who actually use drugs. Going off what Megan said, some of the data that we're going to show you is actual Grant County data. So we really wanted you guys to see a picture of what's happening in our community, in our county. Some of these numbers might not be specific to Moses Lake, but these numbers do represent our community. So Lena Mitchell, our investigation and response manager, in partnership with DOH and EMS and local hospitals, were able to gather this information. Just a disclaimer, some of this data that you're seeing isn't fully represented. This is just what's been processed as of right now. So this number might change in the future. It might be a little more, and you guys might see that this isn't the prettiest thing, but this is what's currently going on in Grant County. So the first thing we're going to talk about is EMS responses. So between 2020 and 2022, there was 316 EMS overdose responses. So that's a lot. That's every time an EMT goes out into the community responds to what is a suspected overdose. Another statistic is between 2020 and 2022, there was 302 hospitalizations in Grant County. So that can be in any hospital that's within Grant County. Another data point is there have been 86 reported related overdoses to substances. And this is just what's been reported from our county coroner and what DOH has been able to provide to us as well. Another statistic is there's actually been, as of right now, 18 specific deaths related to fentanyl. This can come in very many different shapes and forms, and this number continues to grow. A lot of these numbers have been impacted due to COVID-19. We know that COVID had a big impact on our substance abuse community and really impacted and shaped people's lives in ways that they didn't want it to happen.
It's going, there's a delay.
No, you're fine. So next we're going to talk about Narcan. So I'm not going to go into the specifics about what Narcan is. We will have a demonstrator later on, but we're going to talk about how much Narcan has actually been embedded into our community. And these are numbers provided between multiple agencies that are currently doing this work. So we're going to talk about mail order. So there is a mail order through DOH, I think, that can provide Narcan to anyone on. You have to go online and just submit some information, and they will send it to your home. And there was 150 kits distributed in Grant County in 2020. There is also a Narcan vending machine that is located at the sleep center. And in 2022, they provided 348 boxes of Narcan. So this is all this Narcan getting into the community. We don't know if it's all being used, but it's definitely out there. And then between 2021 and 2022, our syringe service program based out of the health district have provided 297 kits. And now we're going to talk about some EMS reported saves. So this is actual saves that we know Narcan has been used to save someone's life. So in between 2020 and 2022, there was 146 saves by the EMS alone. And reported during our syringe service program between 2021 and 2022, there were 86 lives saved. So next, we're going to kind of go into what the average cost of an EMS overdose is. So what it's going to cost the person out of pocket, whoever it is. This is rough estimate. We know that the average cost is $2,000. This isn't accounting for going to the hospital, getting to the hospital. So roughly it costs the person, no matter where you come from or your insurance or anything like that, roughly $2,000. Next, we're going to talk about the cost of Narcan. The average cost of Narcan is $45, but this may be different regardless of regarding your insurance, what happens. It can be actually between $80 and $45. So we know that Narcan can be expensive for the people who need it. But there is services out there that provide Narcan for free, such as the Sleep Center, Grant County Health District, Advanced or Recovery Navigators, and just people who have it as well. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna go to our next Menti question. In a minute, there we go. So what is one word to describe how you feel after what have you just learned about our community? Is there another one that comes up, or is it gonna flow through all of
Oh,
them?
they're
more
coming.
coming.
They're coming, okay.
It's a delay.
That's okay. We'll try to refresh it, everybody, and see if it fills up everybody's answer. There we go. So what do we see here? Disheartened, sadness, broken, devastated, frustrated, supportive, challenged, learning, annoyed, shocked, amazed, unsurprised. That's an interesting one. We'll think of that one. Hope, Jesus, terrified, devastated, strong. Missing any, need, change, challenge. That's our community right now, and that's what we're feeling. That's what we're feeling about the message we just heard. And hopefully, as we go through the rest of this evening, we help to answer some of those concerns. We help to give you some information and maybe switch some of the not so great ones to hope, to opportunity, to the fact that we do have a great community where we can come together and create the solutions that we need so that we can change those words to something a lot brighter. So our next speaker is Bethany Austin. She's a recovery outreach specialist with Grand County Recovery Navigator Program.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous right now. So I'm Bethany Austin. I'm a drug addict in long-term recovery. I grew up in Alaska in a small town with 9,000 people. My addiction started with shoplifting. I was caught at a very young age and quickly it progressed. Middle school, I started drinking, smoking cigarettes and smoking weed. 8th grade, after being caught stealing at a local store to make it up to my mom, I got a job. From then on, I've been able to hold a job except for the year I decided to pursue meth and heroin full-time. High school, I was consistently drinking alcohol, smoking weed. It quickly started interfering with my grades, although I continued to hold a job. I spent money that was saved on alcohol and marijuana. When I was 16, I moved out. I dropped out my senior year and I got my own apartment. I continued to drink. I was able to hold a job, although I couldn't keep the job super long term. I was still able to hold a job, even though I was coming into work still drunk from the night before, hungover. All this before I was 21 years old. 19, I got pregnant and I had my daughter Celia at 20 years old. The family who adopted her started watching her on the weekends. At 20 years old, what do you do on the weekends? So I started drinking. Although I had all the reason in the world to not drink, I had my daughter. I felt that pull and I knew I wouldn't be able to stop. So I did what I thought was right, and I did open adoption. Sorry, I was trying not to do this without crying. I started hanging out with people who were buying me alcohol, who were 21, who were actively using drugs. In a small town of 9,000 people, if you don't know what you're doing, you can walk down the street and someone can tell you what you're doing. It was very known. I put myself in situations where I could have used sooner, but I tried holding off. Eventually, my alcohol addiction progressed into heroin and meth. I was shot up for the first time coming out of the blackout, although I'm not gonna stand here and say it was other people I was hanging out with this fall. I don't have any doubt in my mind I okayed it. So I took off running from there. Eventually, I lost my job. I was homeless, and in Alaska, it takes, the waiting period for treatment is about 6 months to a year just to get into treatment. So I decided to move here to Washington in 2012 to try and get away from drugs. With the price difference, where up in Alaska it's $100, it's $20 here. So I was like a kid in a candy store. I fell into drugs again. I was still able to hold a job at multiple places in town. Eventually, leading up, my unmanageability showed. I wasn't able to hold a job. I would find another job and I would either steal from the store, my boss, or from the people I loved who were trying to help me. I didn't know about Narcan until I decided to utilize the SSP program, the needle exchange program. I didn't know there was anything out there like Narcan. And the people I was using with had Narcan, thankfully. I didn't use my better judgment, and I was getting high with someone else who made my shot of heroin, who had a higher tolerance than me. I was dope sick, and I wanted to feel better. I ended up overdosing. I was Narcan. I came back, and the first words that I heard was, "You got us kicked out of the house." It wasn't, "Are you okay? You're back." It was, "You got us kicked out." The second time was fairly close. It was within a week of my first overdose. With this overdose, it took people about 5 to 10 minutes to find me dead. My arms were locked while I was clinging onto a needle. My lips were purple, and they needed 2 doses of Narcan to bring me back. At the time being brought back, I was angry that I was brought back. First things that came out of my mouth was, "Why didn't you let me die?" I was hopeless, and at that point in my addiction where I had burned every single bridge, I was homeless, sleeping in fields, I was sleeping outside, I had nothing and no one through my own choices. I accepted the fact that I was a drug addict, and I welcomed the fact that I was most likely going to die a drug addict's death. Dying was easy. It was an easy way out, and I didn't see myself getting clean. I surrounded myself with hopeless people. I didn't see an opportunity to get clean. I didn't know of the resources available that would give me hope. I was around people who felt the same about addiction. It wasn't until, I can't even remember the first time. It wasn't about a year after those overdoses, I finally made that decision to get clean. In the meantime, there was people I Narcaned multiple people. A fraction of those people are still using, and a bigger fraction of those people are in long-term recovery as well. Before that time I got clean, I spent that time going to jail for shoplifting charges in different counties. I got a flesh-eating infection called necrotizing fasciitis. I had to have 2 surgeries, even after I continued 2 surgeries. Even after that, I continued to use after my release from the hospital. After my last visit to jail, And upon that release, I got claimed from my boyfriend, but quickly I was able to see that I had to make that decision for myself. I realized I wasn't any good to anyone, to my daughter, to the people I love, unless I took care of myself, and I got clean for me. Today I have 3 years, 5 months, and 15 days clean. My big recovery began with honesty. At a job interview, I was honest. It was about 2 weeks out of jail. I was on DOC supervision. I was given a chance I didn't think I deserved at the time. I told myself this time when I got clean, things were going to be different. And I started with being honest. I told someone who became my boss that I just got out of jail. I was going to be on DOC supervision and I'm in recovery from drugs. I was given a chance and I continued to work there for 2.5 years. I worked there until I made a decision to pursue another job. I worked both jobs for a few months until it came time for me to choose one. I worked at that place after getting raises and promotions until Halloween of 2022, where I began working as a recovery outreach specialist with the FAMS. Today, I surround myself with people who support my recovery, who is conducive to my recovery, and I work a 12-step program. Today, I get to walk into stores and purchase stuff I bought with my hard-earned money, and it's something I don't want to take for granted. The drugs out there scare me. Fentanyl and super meth scare me, so that's another reason why I'm clean. I'm here because I want to help people who couldn't help themselves, just like I couldn't help myself. I want the stuff that I put myself through and my family through to not be for nothing and to mean something to help someone else who was struggling like me. I take great pride in the work I do, being support for drug addicts like me, people who are suffering, and to be a consistent person to support them in the decisions that they make. Today, I have a life with my daughter. She is 12. I have a relationship with her. She calls me her Mama Bethany, and I see her multiple times a year. Sorry, I'm nervous. I'm like messing up my words here. I see her a lot of times throughout the year. I have a relationship with her. I get to gift her my time, spend Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve with her. She understands what I did as much as a 12-year-old can, and she supports my recovery, and I'm clean too because addiction has genetics. And she is prone to fall and make the same decisions I make. But with me being clean, I get to be someone she could come to when she needs help. And because her mom, Bethany, did it, she could do it too.
So I'm just gonna say one word, and that's courageous.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do that. So we would love to have more positive stories, but we would also love to help never have to have that story. So we have to look at this from both sides. We really do. And we have to be open. We have to be honest. We have to be real. Or we're never gonna come to the right solutions, and we're never gonna get better as a community. So we're gonna move on to our next mentee question. So in light of what you've heard tonight, how do you currently feel about Narcan? We should do. That is something. It's coming. We've got people on Zoom and people live voting on our Menti.com. Coming through. Refresh. There we go.
Okay.
We've got 27 answers. We're hearing that, we're thankful for it. We're grateful it's available for those in need of a second chance. If it helps them get clean, it serves its purpose. We're grateful to have this resource. It's valuable and needed, supportive, necessary, all you need. I'm guessing it says is another chance. It saves lives. I'm thankful that lives can be saved. Just because someone is using it doesn't mean they deserve to die. And I read into that, but I'm assuming that's what it said. So there's more answers, but thank you, because those are, I don't say the right answers, but we're glad people are recognizing the benefit and the value of having Narcan available in our community. So our next speaker is Lynn Faulkner. She is a firefighter, paramedic, and acting officer with the Moses Lake Fire Department.
So when we talk about opiates, it encompasses all sorts of different drugs. There's hydrocodone, oxycodone, codeine, fentanyl, methadone, and heroin. The last couple years though, spotlight's been on fentanyl because of its deadly effects. Fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin, 100 times more potent than morphine. These synthetic opioids are often mixed with other drugs and distributed. Fentanyl is cheap to manufacture and is often added in without the buyer's knowledge. It's causing more overdoses because of how potent it is. Imagine making a recipe that calls for 10 grams of sugar, and if you accidentally add 12, it ruins the whole recipe. The amount you took last time might be too much this time. Too much of an opioid will overwhelm the brain and interrupt the body's ability to breathe. Respiratory depression causes hypoxia, which can cause brain cell death and can lead to cardiac arrest without intervention. It's hard to track the amount of overdoses that occur because of the aid of Narcan that is being used prior to EMS arrival. The Moses Lake Fire Department services 23 miles of land and water, which is a small piece of Grant County. We responded to at least 60 calls last year that required us to intervene with Narcan. These do not include the police saves or the civilian saves, just the calls that required us to administer Narcan. When a 911 response is generated for an overdose, it usually involves 2 apparatus, 7 EMTs and paramedics, as well as multiple law enforcement. The operational equipment costs of one of these calls can run upwards of $1,300, with less than a quarter of that being available, if any. On the calls that require intervention, that's nearly $50,000 of cost being absorbed by the fire department that were unbillable. Upon arrival, we ensure our own safety first, then we open the airway, we breathe for our patients, and we administer Narcan. Narcan reduces the effects of the opioids by reversing the overdose and blocking the effects of the opioids, restoring breathing within 2 to 3 minutes. The majority of these patients do not want to be transported, despite the risk of potential overdose again as Narcan wears off, and they regularly deny having a drug use problem or needing any additional help. Out of the 60 calls that required our interventions, only 3 were repeat patients again, leading us to believe that the use of Narcan being readily available reduces fatal overdose and is a relief on the 911 system as well.
All right, we've got our next Menti question. If you're already online, pop on up there so we can get it uploaded. There we go. So are there enough services available in Moses Lake? I see some faces like it's a silly question or just some looks, so it'll be interesting to see what everybody said. So a lot of no's, for sure, a lot of no's, a lot of I don't knows, so that tells us there's just not enough information out there even to let people know what's available in resources. And I know that is very true, people just don't know what's available to them in many ways, whether it's mental health, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's, you know, employment, education, there's a lot of resources that just aren't known. We've got 3 maybes. Maybe there is, maybe people just aren't using the resources, it's kind of the feeling I'm maybe hearing from people when they say maybe. Maybe it's not the right resources that you think you should have, but there are. Then we have 2 that said yes, they think that we have enough services. What I get excited about is the conversation that this can drive. This isn't about who's right or wrong, it's about looking at everybody's perspective and looking at the people that say, yeah, we've got enough already. Okay, great. Maybe they said we have enough, but people that said, I don't know about it. But then the people that say no, maybe they don't know about it at all, so they don't think we have any. So it's just starting the conversation and how do we let people know what resources are there, and then how do we figure out what the gaps are. So our next speaker, Noki Pando, is going to come up, and he is a recovery outreach specialist with Grant County Recovery Navigator Program.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time out of their evening to come down here and whatever your reason may be. I think the most important thing I've done in my recovery, I too in long-term recovery, just a bit over 5 years, is being a part of the solution. What that looks like for me is showing up whether the conversation is uncomfortable or not. You know, whether you're here because you're a concerned citizen, you have a loved one that's struggling with addiction, or you're focused around the stigma around addiction and mental health issues that we have going on in our community. I think the biggest contributing factor that I've done for the community is being a part of things like this, is where we can get educated. There's a lot of things. I think the stigma, we're looking at addiction and people in our community suffering with those things, is we're not knowledgeable about the things that we're facing. We're only left to our own devices. We're only left to make the ill judgment about somebody that's going through things that we know nothing about, right? I know a lot about substance use. I don't know a lot about mental health. So when I see somebody struggling with those challenges, it's easy for me to make a quick judgment. So whatever be the reason that you're out here today, I commend you, because that's courageous too in that part. I probably should have took some notes and little note cards and stuff, so I knew what to talk about, but I'm just gonna kind of add on to exactly what those numbers that stuck out to me the most right there is the answer no, and the answer maybe. The answer no, I think, is the correct answer, just because knowing the community and the resources there is, we're not enough resources. There's a lot of work being done, but there's not enough. I don't feel like there's ever enough work, because there's always somebody that's facing those challenges. There's always a need somewhere else. The other one is maybe, or I don't know. You know, I think a big part about that, if you put I don't know and you're here, I think you're in the right place. I think this is a good place to be, because that just goes back to being uneducated and not knowing what resources the community does have available. If I reflect back on my addiction, I was in my addiction for nearly 20 years of my life. You know, jails, institutions, prison sentences, treatment centers, all of sport over a 20-year span here, mainly in Grant County in this community. I'm one of those people that exhausted EMT services. I'm one of those people that exhausted the MLPD and Grant County Sheriff's Services. I was always being arrested. I was a public nuisance. I was that person walking down the street that you would suspect or stereotype as somebody that was using or selling drugs. That was me. And I took away from my community and extent that I still stayed clean in order to make those amends and make that process available for somebody else in that process to recovery. You know, there's a lot of being clean this time and being I started doing outreach out of the back of my van when I first got out of prison over 5 years ago. And just because I wanted to give back, I wanted to connect with people that I was really familiar with their circumstances. And in that process, it brought me around different places. I remember I was here 4 years ago, and I don't know what they were doing here, but it asked for public comment, and I was in the audience, and I stood up there, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I was like, recovery's possible, trying to root for recovery, you know. But that put me in situations and places where in the community, it's like a common sense that there's a lot of people trying to help people out. But the part of that experience that they don't have in there is the lived experience. I think people with lived experience being at the table, a part of the discussion is absolutely necessary. And when I take a step back and look at Grant County, Moses Lake, our community, looking at it is those people with the, selected officials or people with the interest of this discussion. There's a lot of people at that table that are taking value of people's lived experience. And because of that, it's opening different conversations. It's opening this podium today for somebody like me and somebody like Beth with lived experience to be able to come here and share our experience, our strength, and our hope, And I think, I just being a part of the solution, being a part of the problem is easy, just turning a blind eye to the things that we have going on in our community it's easy. I'm in recovery for over 5 years, and now I know what it is to be a service worker and or to be like a social worker in that field and to get burnt out on the work that we do. We struggle day in, day out to reach the people that are having these challenges, and it gets frustrating, it gets overwhelming. People are stealing from our backyards, people are stealing from our neighbors, our friends are getting robbed from, stores are getting stolen from, people are taking advantage of, people, innocent bystanders are falling victim to these things, and me understanding exactly where it comes from, it's easy for me to get frustrated too, because I'm human, right? So at the end of the day, I focus on being a part of the solution, being a part of being a part of the Moses Lake Coalition and other coalitions across the Grant County, being in recovery has afforded me plenty of opportunities. I'm a board member of Grant County Health District, and that's different for me. That's definitely different for me. And focusing on like what programs we have in our community is peer work. Peer work is somebody with lived experience or been down the same path who can afford services to somebody struggling with mental health or substance use disorder. I'm an outreach specialist for Recovery Navigator program. What that looks like is we're able to meet anybody where they're at, physically, mentally, emotionally. If there's somebody at the park struggling with addiction, we show where they're at. We offer services. We talk to them. We share a little bit about our story, and I hope that we make a connection with them and they find the interest into doing something different with their life. When I spent the time throughout the 20 years going to jail, prisons, institutions, treatment centers, there was always somebody across that desk trying to help me with something that they knew nothing about. And not to take away from what the education piece brings to the table, but I couldn't connect with them. I really couldn't connect with them. So there's something about doing peer work that I can go reach out to somebody that's struggling, that just got done using at the park, that I can connect with them on an emotional level that somebody else may not be able to, and I think that's something that Grant County needs to continue working on, is providing those peer-to-peer services, so we can better connect with that. And we don't always know the numbers, like what is a positive outcome. I mean, and the ideal mind is somebody goes to detox, goes to treatment, stays clean and never uses it again. Like that's success, right? Sometimes success looks like for somebody that's been down these streets for most of their life is having that courage to walk into a door and ask for services, whether they fall through or not. I think it's courageous. That courageous aspect may be the same courageous aspect that you had to come here for whatever the reason be. So I don't know where I'm at on time. I probably missed a bunch of stuff, but I appreciate the opportunity. We have some information out here on the desk. If you guys need any information, like to talk after that, please contact myself, Nick Baker in the back, or Beth. That's all I got. Thank you.
We're gonna do it again. We're gonna do another hand, another round. To get the truth out there and have the real stories reach the community and let people know that recovery is possible. I'm sure you've heard through their voices. It's not easy, but it's possible, and they need the support of the community to do it. So thank you guys. So our next question. Staying on our Narcan conversation, and you were gonna mention Narcan out there. Available for you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I didn't miss that part.
I told you I missed something. We have Narcan available. They're gonna do a demonstration of what Narcan is utilized, how to use it, what it does, do a reversal at its very minimum explanation. We as a program, Recovery Navigator program, have Narcan available, no questions asked. If you want to show up give us a call. We have our information out there. If you would like a Narcan before you leave tonight, or a couple Narcan out there on the table, it says advance, that's our table. Go ahead and be more than welcome to grab one. Our information with our cards and pamphlets are out there as well, and you can stop by our office. And it's not contingent on anything. You don't have to sign up. You don't have your name, phone number, birth certificate, nothing like that. Just grab one. That's all.
Perfect. So it is available at the advanced table if anybody wants to bring them with them, or at their, what was the address?
406 South Division.
406 South Division. No questions asked. If you feel that you need to have some Narcan on hand, or if you would like to have Narcan on hand, there's no questions asked. They will provide it to you for free. All right. So next question is how easy do you think it is to administer Narcan? We've got some very easy, I think, kind of blows a little bit into very difficult. I'm gonna quickly ask this question, show of hand, did anybody ever hear of Narcan before you walked in here tonight?
Never hear of it?
Like you've never even heard of it, you didn't know it really existed? Okay. All right. Well, we're now gonna have Jenny Garcia and Fernando Galarza, behavioral health outreach specialist, I guess, Renew Behavioral Health and Wellness Program, they're gonna come up and speak and give us a demonstration. Oh, they're gonna grab that mic.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Hello, I'm Jimmy, this is Fernando. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Felicia and Megan for putting all this together. All the panelists for being here, and all of you attendees online as well, for your willingness to learn. Then a few of you raised your hand that you weren't aware what Narcan was, right? Maybe I'm saying things. So Fernando here is gonna lay down, we're gonna pretend as if he is suffering from overdoses. Bear with me here, this might be difficult to do while holding the mic. I'm not moving, you're not moving. So this is Narcan right here, okay? And so when I approach the situation, I don't know if he's just passed out, if he stayed up late, sleeping in. So what I want to do is call his name. Let's say I don't know his name. I'll go, hey buddy, you all right? You all right? Do some sternal rubs. I won't do them hard on the action because I want to try it. But you would do that, and ideally, if they're not suffering from an overdose, they would react to it. So he's not reacting at all. It's safe for me to assume he's having an overdose. So I pull out my Narcan, and this is the nasal injection. So what I want to do is, he's already laying flat on his back. I want to support his head. We'll say, for sake of this, that I'm supporting his head with my other hand here. Tilt it back. And I will proceed. You know, I'm so nervous. I'm going to say the most important thing. You call them first. You call 911 first. I apologize. I apologize to the viewers online. You call 911 first and foremost. Now back to where I left off. You proceed to administer it. It doesn't matter what the nasal passage it is. And at our review table over there, where you have some of these testers, that you can feel free to see how hard or not hard you have to press. I like to joke that if you have a lot of boogers, you might have to press on it pretty firmly. But Nanda looks like there's no bats in the cage right now, so I can feel like. And so I'll put it off his nose and just administer it. Okay. So after administering it, I would tilt him to his side, knee up to support him so that he wouldn't. There we go. So that he doesn't roll on his belly. And they're supporting his head, because when he comes to, he might vomit. And I don't want him to start choking on his vomit. So that's what I'm doing, right? 911 is already called, paramedics are on the way. And so I keep talking to him, keep making sure he's awake. He's awake, anything. It's been between 2 to 4 minutes, roughly around 3, unresponsive still. So in that case, I would tilt him back on his back. Get my second Narcan, and again, it doesn't matter what nasal passage I administer it. So at this point, I would administer a second dose. proceed to tilt him over to his side. Right, I'm with him, I'm staying with him. Okay, he's coming to, he's all right. Good, I asked him what his name is, right, make sure he's conscious. How you doing, buddy? You all right? You good? So, luckily for me, Nava's a great guy, he's very kind and friendly. You have to remember that you're gonna be bringing them down from their high. So, the individual might become irate. So, so, just keep that in mind. I'm gonna stay with him until paramedics arrive. As soon as paramedics get here, I inform them that I've administered Narcan, how many doses I've administered. And, you make sure you lay them down. Once they come to, then they can sit back up and take it slow. One thing I do want to stress is that you cannot get sick from Narcan. You cannot overdose on Narcan, and Narcan is safe for all ages, right? So even if he wasn't having an overdose and I administered it, if he was just passed out, it does him no harm. Whether it's a 5-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 60-year-old individual, Narcan is perfectly safe. In fact, just last week, we had an incident where we had to administer Narcan. I had to administer 2 of the nasal passages. And another thing I want to stress is, much like when someone's choking, even if you know CPR, you know the Heimlich, you think someone is more adept to do it. And surely you look around the room and you're like, oh, well, if Nando's here, okay, in this situation, yes, there's trained medical professionals here. But if they weren't here, I'll probably be looking at, oh, surely someone can help Nando, someone else will come too. But that's not always the case. In fact, more often than not, the individual passes because no one was quick enough to take action. So in my situation, the individual that was overdosing was surrounded by plenty of people, and they were just shouting, Narcan, Narcan, we need Narcan. So I sprinted, I haven't sprinted in a while, hold that hand actually, but sprinted over there, administered Narcan. And as soon as I administered the first dosage, suddenly everyone around me was like, oh, you need Narcan, da, 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 right? But they froze because they thought, oh, someone else is more equipped to do this than I am. So I want to stress that if you know how, and even if you don't know how, this is why I'm here, this is why we have a paper up there on our table to show you the step-by-step. Be quick to take action. If you're scared of repercussions, we have the Good Samaritan law, that you're acting in good faith, right? And much like Bethany, that individual came to after 2 doses of the nasal Narcan. She has a story, right? And thanks to Narcan, she's able to continue to write that story. So that's it. Thank you.
Usually, how many dosages does it require when someone's dosing? And if it's multiple dosages, how long do you wait before you administer that?
Great question. You want to wait 2 to 4 minutes, roughly we say around 3. So another thing you can do, if they're not laying on their side, if the individual's too big that you can't get them, you want to do those sternal rubs, right? Slap them across the face a little bit to see if they react to that. And also, great question. Sometimes, even after you administer Narcan, the reason you want to stay with them until help arrives is because they can fall back into that high, into that overdose. So that's why it's good to have multiple on you, because you never really know how much it's going to take. We've heard stories where it took up to 6 of them for them to come back from their overdose. But nonetheless, luckily they came back.
And usually how many, like, what's the average of when someone else uses, like, how many you administer? Like, what's an average?
I would say roughly 1 to 2, 3-ish, like that. There's, like I said, there are rare occasions, nonetheless, they do occur where it does take that excessive amount of 6, 7, 8 doses of it.
There's 2 doses of each box.
Correct.
But doesn't it expire?
So There's an expiration date on the box where you get it. If you have no other Narcan, you only have expired Narcan, we can't stress enough to still use it. Expired Narcan is better than no Narcan.
Like the recall, like.
Yes, so on the sheet we have the radio table out there, and you should have Google it up. You're not supposed to keep it in your car, right? We're in extreme warm temperatures and such. There is a medium temperature in which ideally it would be stored. And it can freeze.
Awesome, great questions, everybody. Just a reminder, there's booths that are with a ton of information and they're gonna have them. Oh, I was bringing his sheet, he's gonna flash it up for everybody. They're all out there when we're all done. You can grab some more information. And again, we continue to provide this information in our monthly meetings. We can connect people with resources if they have more questions about these sorts of things. This is what the coalition is here to do, is help educate and provide this information to people in the community that want it. So our next Menti question, and it looks like a ton of people are already answering. What can we do as a community members to help reduce substance use rates in our community? So here's some of the answers we've got. We've got so far: provide better access and more services. Education, thank you. I believe in that one full and foremost. Informed decisions make life a little easier. Support. Genuine acceptance of, meaningful opportunities to engage with their community. Go to the schools and educate the children. Provide education about substance misuse and the dangers. Prevention, healthy activities, mentoring, and coping skills for our youth. Work on the underlying traumas. Advocate for policy changes. Become informed. Yes, please volunteer. We would love more volunteers in the Moses Lake Community Coalition. Be an advocate for organizations and pray. Educate on the dangers and talk about it. Those are all wonderful answers. And again, I'm going to give us another plug. A lot of those things are what we're doing every month. So if you haven't attended a meeting, I please encourage you to continue with us. We are here to educate. We are here to hear the voices. We're here to help you feel like you're getting something back, that you can be a part of a solution. That is what the coalition is all about. So to speak a little bit more to that, again, Megan Watson, our coalition coordinator in Moses Lake here, is going to come back up.
Okay, so I am going to talk a little bit about substance use prevention because that's what we do. So I know whenever we get these kinds of talks and we start throwing the information out there, if there are parents in the crowd, the first thing they want to know is, well, what can I do as a parent to be preventative with my own children? And actually, there are several things that you can do that are effective. So I'm going to talk about a list of about 7 of them tonight. Number 1 on the list is to talk early and talk often. I'm not sure if everybody in this room does have kids, but I can let you know that we do hear a lot of stories about younger and younger kids starting with substances these days, and I'm talking 9 years old. That's 5th grade. We do have a statistic in Moses Lake. We give what's called the Healthy Youth Survey. It goes out to all of our students that are between 6th and 12th grade. And what we found from the Healthy Youth Survey is that here in Moses Lake, about a quarter of our young people have started with substances by the time they hit 8th grade. That's a lot, and that's really young. So it's never too soon really to start talking about these things. There's a difference in degree to how much detail we really go into. But start the conversations while they're young, in elementary school, and talk about it often. I used to work in insurance, and to sell life insurance, they would tell you, you have to have at least 7 touches until somebody finally commits to protecting themselves with life insurance. We're talking about kids. Their brains are not fully developed. They have hormones raging through their bodies. 7 touches is not going to do it. So definitely keep having those conversations and keep going deeper and deeper into it the older that they get. Number 2, one of the best things you can do, set clear expectations for your home. Be very explicit about how you feel about substance use, what the consequences will be. They need to know exactly the ins and outs of everything to expect when it comes to this issue. Number 3, support healthy activities. A ton of these kids are beginning their dabbling in this area because of boredom, because of wanting to feel a sense of belonging to a group or to somebody else. It's a coping skill. And if they don't have another coping skill, this is the one that they're going to rely on. So any kind of healthy activities when they show an interest, the best thing that you can do is show an interest in that interest too and encourage that, because if they're developing healthy coping skills, they're less likely to depend on something like substance use. Number 4, practice with them about refusal skills. How uncomfortable is it if someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, let's have a barbecue this weekend, and you really don't want to, and you have to give them a rejection? If you're anything like me, I blame it on the husband, he's totally fine with it, and have that arrangement, and I get it. But for these kids under pressure, that's an uncomfortable situation to be in, and to expect them to be able to maneuver that well on the spot, under pressure, highly unlikely that they're gonna be able to do it. So you literally have to practice. I will point out that when you're pretending to be the drug pusher, don't ever let them practice being the drug pusher. We're not trying to improve those skills. Always let them be the ones practicing the refusal. Some things that you can tell them, a really easy way to go about it, if they're being pressured, the first thing they can do is start asking questions. Well, why would I want to do that? Well, what do you mean by that? It gives them a minute to kind of calm down. And sort of take the attention off of trying to come up with another response. Suggesting to do something else is always good. Let your kids make you the heavy. I'm fine with that. They are welcome at any time to say, oh, my mother would kill me. And put it on me, like I'm a crazy person, I'm good with it, it doesn't bother me. So that's a good kind of just a few things that they can practice, and they need to be in a situation. Sometimes some of these kids get pretty persistent. So practice with them. The next thing, big thing, create an escape plan. They will get themselves into situations that they're uncomfortable getting out of, and they just need to get out of there. Come up with some kind of code word or symbol or something that they can send you a text, and then your response is to show up and get them out of there. Tiny little caveat, and I know it's very difficult. I talk everything to death with my children. But when you do this, when they actually trust you enough to say, I'm in trouble, come and get me, when they get in your car, no questions asked. It's not the time to drill into them. You don't get to berate them. You don't get to tear them apart for being somewhere they weren't supposed to be. The point of the matter is they trusted you, they were in danger, they did what they needed to do to get help, and they're safe now. And after that, you just have to let it go. If they don't have that escape plan, you're not the one they're going to be calling when they're in a situation. Next thing, who, what, where, when. We should know this every time our children leave out the door. And it is annoying. I mean, mine roll their eyes to me, they don't particularly prefer it, but it is routine, it's just standard operating procedure now. Who are you gonna be with? What are you gonna be doing? Where are you gonna be going? When will you be back? And one thing I would suggest is, Hannah's gonna have to do some checks on this, some undercover stuff. Every now and then, just pop up. And so if you do happen to, number one, catch them, now they're caught, and there's gonna be, now you know, okay, clearly I can't trust you like I thought I could, you can take it from there. Other times, you're gonna be trying to creep up on them, and they're gonna see you, but that lets them know, oh, I'm being spot checked here. They're actually gonna pop up and check on me, so it gives them a pressure to be more honest. The last thing, the biggest thing, watch for warning signs, and there will be warning signs. They can become withdrawn, sullen, depressed. They can start having trouble focusing. They can become uncommunicative. And I recognize a lot of times we're talking about teenagers, and this is status quo anyway, but you will see it change. It won't be the normal, crappy teenage behavior that they give you. You'll see relationships between their friends, their usual friends and family members, it'll start to change. They'll disappear for long periods of time. Notice physical things like a grinding jaw or a lot of sweating. avoiding eye contact, making a bunch of excuses. Big one, changing friends. A lot of these kids get in school and they maintain friendships from start to finish. But once you notice that all of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of new kids hanging around, you're gonna wanna dig into that a little bit. If they're jittery and anxious, or on the flip side of it, unusually tired, or if they're isolated. All of these things are just signals that kind of let you, something's happening. If it's not drugs, maybe it's a mental health struggle, and you need to know that too. But those are the things to be thinking about when you're thinking about what can I do to make it less likely that my child uses substances. The next thing I want to talk about is talk a little bit about what prevention means. There is a science behind it, which I will not bore you with this evening. I just kind of want to paint a picture, a little bit of what we mean when we say prevention. So if you could, imagine a little bit of a fishing village, okay? And everybody's down by the banks of the river, you know, fast, regular flowing river, everybody's doing their job, somebody looks up, and there's a kid in the river getting taken away by the current. So naturally, everybody springs into action, right? You go straight into go mode, time to save this kid. Everybody works together, fights the current, pulls the kid to the bank. No sooner do they get that kid saved, then here comes another, and then another, and then another. More and more adults are coming from the outside. Everybody's working together. We're trying to get this done. All of our resources and energy are being pumped into saving these kids' lives. Until eventually it occurs to somebody, one of us needs to go upriver and find out why they're falling in the first place. There's a reason. That is what we do with prevention. That is what the Moses Lake Community Coalition does. We try to get upriver and find out what are the things that are happening specifically here in Moses Lake that are making this happen. We use a lot of sources for data to tell us that. We rely heavily on the Healthy Youth Survey because that's coming straight from the kids. They're letting us know how it's happening. So when we dug into this data, we found that there are a lot of risk factors that make it more likely that they'll use substances. And there's a lot of protective factors that make it less likely that maybe we need to put in place. So the ones that we are operating off of, some of the risk factors are favorable attitudes towards use. A lot of kids are sent the message that the community is comfortable with this. But I mean, you can sort of see that, right? We have 3 dispensaries in town, and like it's widely accepted in the state of Washington. They're getting that message. So favorable attitudes towards use, family management is a huge issue in Moses Lake. I think it's about a third of our kids have reported trouble with family management at home. And just sort of being day-to-day operations, and to determine whether or not they have good family management going on at home, we ask questions like, do your parents ask you where you've been when you're out? If you carried a handgun to school, would they find out? Things like that to sort of determine, is the family really functioning at a solid level? And about a third of our kids say no. Early initiation, spoke about this a little bit, younger and younger all the time. And then access and availability. And I think a lot of times we don't always consider how easy it is, and I recognize that, especially when it comes to like something like cannabis, adult use is legal. I have no opinion on that, I really do not. Everybody's free to do what they do. The recommendation would be to lock it up. The same with your prescription medications. Nobody likes to believe that their child will get into their medicine cabinet and steal their meds. But 75% of the people that are addicted to opioids began their addiction by taking prescription medications from a friend or a family member. It's just a common pathway. So lock up the meds. Some of the protective factors that we focus on in our coalition is focusing on bonding, opportunity, skills, and recognition. Technically, this is the social development strategy, but I won't go there with you. But these are the things that make a heavy impact on a kid. They need to feel connected. They need to feel bonded in their school environment, within the community itself, within the family. They need to have opportunities to learn new things and then be shown recognition for their hard work. So this leads me a little bit to a little bit of a story about a young lady who experienced several risks and several protective factors throughout her life. Some of her risk factors being poverty, that's a huge risk factor, by the way. Poverty, generations of addiction and mental health issues, family management trouble, favorable attitudes, access to substances, all of these things. And these are obstacles, these are things that raise the risk, right? The genetics and then everything else on top of it, it just raises the risk. But she also had some protective factors to balance that out. A couple of very attentive family members that maintained a strong bond and always showed interest in what she was doing. Having close relationships. At 13, she was sent to a leadership development program where she found out that she could thrive in an environment that she felt like she didn't even belong in. It gave her the opportunity to learn new skills and to feel successful. A couple of attentive teachers that recognized that she had a little bit of something going on and maybe she could pursue her education. Just providing encouragement and recognition for what she had going. And these were all prevention. It may have been unintentional prevention, but it was prevention. And it's because of that unintentional prevention that I'm standing here today instead of statistically where I would have likely ended up given my circumstances. None of them realized what they were doing for me. But that makes me hopeful in what we do here, what we do with this coalition, because imagine how impactful we could be if we intentionally and strategically went about prevention and did it on purpose. And so it's for that resentment. And I know you heard it a couple times, but I'm just gonna do it again. I urge you to get involved with the Moses Lake Community Coalition. There is such a need for a variety of perspectives and we have to work together. And this is absolutely one of those things that does not work and it does not function well unless we are all involved. We have to be sending similar messages. We need your ideas. We need your connections. We need you to help us teach the community how to do prevention so that we can reach these kids and get to them young enough so that we can go upriver and stop this problem. So that a generation from now, it doesn't feel like such a heavy burden and we don't leave that heavy burden for our children to try to solve. Thank you.
So again, the word there is passion.
Yes.
Megan joined, are we coming up a year?
July.
She joined the Moses Lake Community Coalition. She came from the Quincy Coalition, but she lived in Moses Lake, so when the opportunity presented itself, we wanted to join her community and make sure she was bringing that passion to the community where she lived and she was raising her children. And I can tell you in the 3 years, I'm in awe every time I speak to this woman because the knowledge is phenomenal. The perspective is top notch, but it's just the desire to bring the community to the table. She never goes at it like, I know all the answers or I'm gonna solve all the problems. She always looks at it like, I need more people to tell me what they think. I need more of the community to show up and tell me how they want us to spend our money, what organizations we should be supporting, what things we need to be implementing in our community, what school systems, what resources, what services. Because she's gonna be the one that pulled it together, figures out where the money comes from, so we can spend it back into our community. But that's what she wants to do, but she needs all of you guys to come do it. So yeah, now is our opportunity. It's your opportunity. We're gonna have some community discussion now. I'm gonna walk around with the microphone and have people ask.
Where do you meet on Thursdays?
So we are doing, during COVID, we were 100% Zoom. Now we are Zoom and hybrid. So we're always gonna be Zoom. But we are trying to get together more in person. If we can find a space that will allow for us to meet, we always try to meet in person, so that it'll be a hybrid, but it is every third Thursday of the month that we always get together for an hour and a half, 12 to 1:30. All right. Anybody else have questions about some of the mentees, have comments? Good, bad, whatever.
And do we have inpatient facilities, or do we always have to go to Yakimon's Spokane and?
I'm not gonna be the expert, I'm gonna let somebody else jump in, but there is nothing that I'm aware of right here in Moses Lake, but I want somebody else to answer that.
unfortunately not.
Are you looking at getting available here?
I mean, I would like to hope so, but then again, that's a part of being, that again is being that part of the solution and knowing who to talk to, when to talk to them, when to have those meetings, because I'm sure there's something in the works, but being connected to those people and voicing the need for our community, because it is unfortunate that not only do we have to make those, like, for our program, we take that, we specialize in getting people into detox and streamline them into the inpatient program. We have outpatient here, which is great. It doesn't meet the immediate need, right? So it's unfortunate we're able to take those. But being able to connect with those places is unfortunate, but at the same time, it's like, I know there's a great need for Grant County, or specifically Moses Lake, because what do we do when we take people to other places, we exhaust their resources, you know what I mean?
So that's part of the coalition advocacy piece. That's a piece of what we do. When we have community members that come to this meeting, we're moving into our strategic planning meeting right now. And that's part of it. When we get the group together and somebody says that to, why don't we have this? And we go, you know what, I don't know why, but if we're all as a group agreeing that this is something that we need to advocate for, that's the starting point.
I really feel like we do, because Spokane is so booked, like every time you call Spokane, there's a waiting list for detox, and then the inpatient won't take you till you go through the detox. And so I think it's pretty important to have those here.
Until we get that, if you have somebody that needs to get the detox, please let us know. We can streamline that, make that happen, for sure.
I just want to mention too, the need for an actual detox center is just like our need for an actual inpatient mental health facility, which we have attempted. I don't know if there is a building next to Renew, and it was intended to be able to be this 24-hour facility. Where we have run into issues is it's incredibly costly to have 24-hour staff, psychiatric staff, nursing staff. It's insanely expensive. And so what's kind of come down to is, because Moses Lake is such a hub of the county, that something like this is likely gonna have to come more from a county level. And it's gonna have to be largely reliant on federal and state grant money. And it's just a very difficult sell because it involves things like raising taxes, which everybody hates to hear. And we heard about this at the city council meeting as it comes to like a 24-hour place for a homeless facility and everything. Politicians and people in those positions are kind of hesitant to say the words, we're gonna need to raise taxes for this. But if there's enough community members that are willing to throw that out there and support that, that does help. But it ultimately comes down to money. That's what it is.
I would like to hear or what any of you guys think about, like the possibilities of like statewide decriminalization, like straight, like rec legalization of other substances that like you can't do beyond, like things being legalized, like mushrooms and the Bay Area, or states of California, Denver, DMT, like drugs that statistically can't have a lot of positive effects and are statistically far less dangerous, but if you guys feel like that would have an effect on, like say like fentanyl use.
It's a good question. I want to know. Ready? Anybody want to know that one?
That's it. So again, it's one of those tough conversations that you don't want to shy away from. We understand, but it's a real question.
I don't have a concrete answer for your question, and this is me on behalf as an individual, not my organization, stating this comment. I'm from Portland, and so I'm sure you know they recently decriminalized that. But I just wanted to add to your question, have the comment that I am curious to see, right, it's not something that we're gonna see right away. Exactly. That's why I am curious to see within 3 to 5 years, 10 years, how that plays out there. I just wanted to add that comment. Great question, though.
Thank you.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
So been in recovery for 5 years. Program that I practice, me personally, this has nothing to do with the program that I work for, is I believe in complete abstinence, because this time around recovery, that's what works for me. I try to have this, I try to just use this, try to just use on the weekends, or substitute one for another. And that just like eventually fueled me back into everything, but that was what I got in recovery. That's not yours, hers, his, that's not anybody else's. But what I do know is, as this position, at the end of the day, I'm a recovery coach. The recovery coach and is we foster the topic of you're in recovery when you say you are. Like, if you come in and you're like, hey, I stopped using crack cocaine, heroin, I'm just smoking pot on the weekends, cool. I'm gonna support you through that process, walk alongside you until something changes, where now that your life is unmanageable, we need to make some adjustments to continue that path. So to say that I'm personally against that, for me and for me to stay abstinent, I personally am. But if it's somebody else's choice, I'm more than willing to walk alongside that process and see how the outcome is. I know a lot of people that quit using hard drugs and minimize it for other drugs like you may be speaking of, that their lives may look manageable, you know, but the outcome of that too is sometimes, in my experience, is sometimes those levels of unmanageability are just different by perspective. So I'm able to have a job and a wife and a family and like be a functional addict or somebody that functionally uses doses, right? But in reality, there's other parts of my life that are being taken on because I continue to use the drug.
And I'm gonna add something to that. I am by far an expert. I am just a community member like the rest of you that of the coalition. But what I've learned is, and what our focus is on prevention. So when you heard Megan talking, our goal is to figure out why people are using in the first place and how do we prevent the need for that. Now again, recreational and all kinds of other words, but really at the end of the day, when we're talking about our youth and then into adulthood, the question is why. So whether we legalize it or it's not, or whatever, at the end of the day, there's a choice being made to use that substance. Whether it's legalized marijuana, or legalized alcohol, or the legal stuff. There was a reason behind the choice. How do we create preventative measures? How do we implement preventative measures at youth level and then into adulthood? So that isn't your go-to because you want to celebrate. Yay, I have a drink when I celebrate, or I have a drink when I have a really crappy day, or, you know, where we come from a coalition, it's about the prevention piece. So there is no easy answer on that, but we look at it from a perspective of why are people turning to those substances? And can we give them another, can I give them another high? Maybe they want to go fishing, maybe, you know, maybe they want to go hiking, maybe they just want to read a good book, and maybe, you know, that's what we're looking at. So that's mine.
I'm sure you've all watched Intervention, right? So at the end of every intervention, there is a program that they talk about called the Betty Ford Family Program, and I recently took it. And for me, there's a lot of like just fear wrapped around all of this, and it was hugely impactful for my mother and I. It's a program that if parents or people come to you and want answers, like real things to hold on to. It's not a pre-recorded thing, it's interactive, it's free, you can sign up and it's a half-a-day program or more. It was very, very good at removing some of the negative stigma that I have, and fear for me. And it was just very impactful for me. So it was easy to find, it was easy to navigate through, and I just thought it was awesome as a parent to have something to hold on to that is like informational, that feels like it does something for me.
So it's a virtual training?
No, it's free, it's a virtual training, anybody can sign up. It was interactive, so it was like they put you in Zoomers together, small groups, to be able to talk about the things that are actually going on with you. It was great.
Can you share that with Megan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. What we'll do is Megan will get it and we will get it on our Facebook page. Absolutely. That's what we're about, sharing the education and the information. And lady in front, or do you want to go that one?
I'll make it up.
I'm here because my son and I are concerned for friends, like you said, they're, not functioning on all cylinders, their brains aren't completely formed and they grab decisions. And are teenagers allowed to carry Narcan, just in case, like, is it legal for them to have it on them? Or do they have to have something, a prescription, they can have it on them?
It's a, there's, in the state of Washington, there's an open, they call it, there's an open script for Narcan, so anybody can go to a pharmacy, no prescription needed, and get it based on whatever the interest they have or do not have.
Can they carry it at school and they're,
I don't think
Sports?
it's part of the age because it's non-narcotic, it's not narcotic, there's no negative outcomes of that. The only negative outcome of using Narcan is the symptoms that a person that was administered to, that like diarrhea, throwing up, dizziness, stuff like that. But other than that, I've never heard of any reason or restriction about who or where they can carry it now.
and do you have a program where you train teens to help, with their friends like that, how to?
We, Recovery Navigator Program, we've had the opportunity to go present to a couple groups at the high school and their health class, I believe it was. So we have had opportunity, we are still trying to navigate that, to see where we can put more, education on that piece. But if a youth was to walk into our office and ask us like, hey, I have a friend, I have a loved one, my dad, my mom, who've had that experience, is using drugs or something's wrong with them. I think you may be using fentanyl or they're smoking these pills, like we need something, we can give them Narcan. We can give them a brief demonstration of how to utilize that Narcan and then in the process, try to give them some kind of information or hope.
Thank you.
The high school also has a program called the Youth Action Team. Have you heard of the YAT group? So it's the Youth Action Team. It is actually, I don't see funded, I don't know if it's the right word, but
Supported.
it's supported and what's Lee Allison's title?
Student assistance professional.
She's the student assistant professional, and because we have a local Lake community coalition, the school district can have a professional that works with all kinds of things. She provides safe space. I know she does substance abuse counseling, correct?
Intervention.
And intervention, but there is an organization through the high school that definitely is somebody that you can go to speak to that might have some answers that might be more directly knowledgeable of the school points. Sorry, Matt.
To go along with that, you talking about, talking with your kids and him talking to his friends, they brought up the Good Samaritan laws, and that's something that's really important to know, that if he ever gets in trouble, his friends are ever in trouble, you call for help right away, you call 911, you will never be in trouble from law enforcement for calling 911. It doesn't matter if you have drugs, if you have paraphernalia, any of that stuff, they will usually take it away from you. But you will never be in trouble for that. So always call, and as long as you're acting in good faith, and doing the right thing, it'll protect you.
Thank you.
That's a very good point. Because as a youth, we try to put our mind back when we were youth and we were around a situation that maybe we were pressured into because we didn't have a way out of that conversation. We ended up at a place that we really didn't have any plans on being there. And somebody using drugs, I mean, there was no fentanyl when I was young, but there was other illicit drugs that there was people that were overdosing. I never thought that it was safe to do that. Like if I was past the point of worried about my friends knowing that I could call the cops or call law enforcement, but nowadays is that there's that Good Samaritan law protects you, you're able to do that, acting in good faith is. At the end of the day, like whether we're a child or an adult, is when we get in that moment where there's a traumatic event going on, there's studies behind that, like where we think that everybody else is going to take care of the problem, so we stray away from it out of fear, out of unknowing, on education, you know what I mean? But I think we look at the person in that situation, like we need to be courageous and fearless in that moment and make that call, because it's especially going to be the change of somebody's life. As long as somebody has a breath in their lungs, they have another opportunity to change their life.
Part of the conversation that Megan said, talk to your teenagers, talk to your kids and say, you're not gonna get punished. If you find yourself in a situation where somebody else needs help, you have to call help. Right? Just if they're calling you for help and they got to call 911 for a buddy that just did something really bad or really stupid, rather than them get scared and run away. And then have to live with the guilt or whatever it might be. Teach your kids it's okay to call for help and that, you know, might be a conversation down the road, but you're not gonna rip a new one 5 seconds into it. That they need to know that that's a safe place, that's a safe choice.
Well, actually, they can get in trouble if they don't call for help. There's some case law, and I don't know if it's in Washington, but I've read about it before where the kids are ODing or whatever, and their friends take off, and instead of them calling for help, they end up getting charged with that debt. And so
Bigger
it's
part of
important.
that, I'd rather be looked at as somebody that's told or called the cops or called EMS to be the one showing up and treating them better.
First, I just wanted to say, proud of you guys for making the choice, you know, to change your life. I also just, and we touched on mental health today. I just want to make sure everyone's mindful that it's not always the choice that people make, use. Sometimes there's trauma and or mental health, and the alcohol, the drugs is a symptom and not a choice. I just want to say that so we all have a little more heart out there.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
One more, and then I saw a question popped up online, so we'll take that and then I'll keep going around with you guys.
I just want to share too that we do have resources for parents, loved ones, grandparents. If anyone is using this, we have an Al-Anon program. And it has saved my life, having been married to alcoholics, having raised addicts and alcoholics. And it just has really helped me learn how to take care of myself. Because you have to take care of yourself first before you're good for anybody else. You're in town. Look into it.
Maybe you can share that information with Megan too, so we get that off the website.
All right, I saw a question pop up online, so I'm going to read at least that. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. Okay, so there's two. One is, please provide the addresses of the Narcan distribution locations again.
406 South Division Street.
406 South Division Street. We'll write that in the chat too for everybody online. And I think we'll follow this post on our Facebook page as well. And if you sign up for our email, we can include that in our email newsletter, so everybody has that. And then the next question is, do we have any Oxford housing in Grant County for individuals coming out of rehab?
Yes, we do. Grant County currently has 2 male recovery or Oxford houses. If you want any information about that, I can let you further know. Yes, we do have 2 of them. The way to directly know if they have any openings is go to oxfordvacancies.com.
So that was oxfordvacancies.com, everybody on Zoom. And again, we're gonna share a lot of information afterwards. Some of the business information for the organizations and whatnot. But as Noki said, there is 2 in Bragg County.
Yes.
So there's 2 in Bragg County. You can reach out to him, he can give you further details, or you can go to that website. But they're both male.
Both male.
They're both males.
We're working on a female.
We're working on a female again, advocacy is what we as a community to help support these things.
I apologize if you already touched up on the issue of funding, I was like, I rushed over after my training. But I am curious to know, where do you guys get your funding?
I don't know, you wanna bring her the mic or do you wanna come on up?
Here it comes.
We defer to the expert.
Okay. So we are fully grant funded, so we have several different streams. We rely on the substance abuse block grant, which those are federal dollars. We rely on the dedicated marijuana account, which is ending soon, but those are state dollars. We also have the state opioid response. We are able to, because we just recently, within the last couple of months, I think it was, we just added opioids to our plan, so we're able to qualify for those now. We are supported also by the city of Moses Lake. They provide us a yearly, I guess, stipend almost, so they support us. And we are looking forward, because Moses Lake is a large enough community to sustain a second employee to be focused on prevention. We will be pursuing DFC funding, drug-free communities funding, and that's also federal. So we're looking into that, and something like that is pretty substantial. That would support us with another employee for up to 10 years, fully funded. So one of the things, and I'm going to take the opportunity to benefit the coalition again, and I'm so sorry. But one of the things that helps us maintain our funding is by showing that we have community support. So the more people that get involved and sign the paper, we have 3 different types of membership. You don't have to show up every month, but the more we can show the community wants us here and they need us here, it qualifies us for more funding. And we are large enough and in enough of a situation that we can definitely, we can handle utilizing those funds and putting some more programs into place. Just want to throw that out there. Thank you for that question.
Where's the sign up sheet for that?
The sign up sheet, if you, yeah, there is, if you, on the back of the agenda, there's a QR code. If you scan that, that'll take you to our sign up page. You can sign up to join the coalition. You can sign up just for our newsletters. That even helps. The more I can report that we're getting some circulation, the better. There's also some little business cards out there. There's a QR code on there too. You can get connected with that, whatever you would like to get connected with them.
Facebook, it's like Community Coalition.
Yes, and you can always message us on Facebook.
You guys don't get any funding from the county?
County, no.
Okay. And because you just reclassified to add opioids, are you gonna be getting a chunk of the change from the opioid settlement that our Attorney General was part of?
That is something that I hear is a possibility. It's not something that we've dug into just yet. I don't have the contact for that. I would love to, but I don't. And I also know we're in a, because we are considered a high drug trafficking area, there are available funds that way too. Just a little bit challenging because we have to show that we have a capacity to handle it. And we have to build enough partnerships within the community that people are like, yes, I want to do that program and I want to make it a big deal. So we're still doing a lot of presentations and sort of just selling the product right now. In group, yes.
Okay, how long have you guys been in a coalition for?
Oh, the Moses Lake Community Coalition technically was founded about 10 years ago. The nature of the game changes. I would say it was about 4 years ago that there was a big shift in what was required for maintaining the funding and all of that kind of thing. So it's really only been in its current state for 3 or 4 years, something like that. And prior to that, it changes as the funding requirements change. But from what I understand, the city or the state of Washington just keeps sort of recognizing the cost effectiveness of prevention. It takes a fraction of the funds that it takes for something like treatment for prevention to be effective, and if that's being recognized, so I have been led to believe that what we're seeing now should maintain well into the future. So hopefully this particular model that we're working with now won't shift, and the longer we can keep it and fine tune it, the better we can make it function.
We're in the strategic planning stage right now, where we have to complete this huge, big plan that will, it's a 2-year, we have to do every 2 years. It got waived over COVID, so this is a big one for us. We literally applied for opioid because it wasn't on a strategic plan pre-COVID before I came on. But then as we were coming out of COVID, we were like, oh lordy, we need to get some opioid dollars in here. And we are tied in to our grant system, how we can spend the money. So again, we went back to our coalition, we took a vote, they said, yeah, we need some money, we got those grant dollars. So we are working on continuing that into our next strategic plan. The new employee that we are looking at getting, should we get this grant, is going to be very much a youth-based coordinator. The reality is we're really trying to work off the mentality that nothing for them without them. We need the youth voice. We love having you all here, but we need more youth to tell us the who, what, when, where, and why of what's going on around them. And there are a lot of youth organizations, but we all live in our own little silos. And that's something we recognize as a coalition and thought, wow, if we could have a coordinator and their whole job is just to connect the dots between the services, between the youth organizations and, you know, what's going on, whether it's, you know, the organizations that are providing them healthy things to do instead of drugs, or the organizations that are directly addressing some of the issues. We need to connect the dots, and somebody needs to step up and be that person, and that's what we want to do. So we're hoping to get that grant to be that person.
And then, if I could just encourage you guys in the future, when you hold events like this, if you actually have a piece of paper for people to sign, you're gonna get some good numbers.
Like sign, we have to.
To sign up for like the membership, the numbers that you guys need to be able to get grants for showing that people are interested and stuff. That's where, like.
There's a sign sheet outside as you walked in, it's covered in cookies and water. Yeah.
For like the membership or whatever, to build those numbers, if you have it present here. Cause I don't do like technology, so I don't do Facebook, I don't do QR codes, so.
I would say I'm gonna give props to Megan, you've been out in the community more in the last almost year than we've had the ability. Our membership is growing, so that's super exciting because we have the support, but she has been at, you know, National Light Out, she's been at Halloween, she's been at, open like the first day of schools, and like she's been everywhere and getting, and we do a survey, we have to do 150.
180.
So we have to get 180, and I'm surprised, it's tough for us to get 180 surveys done. And it's just an mandatory thing, and we shoot it out, so people literally standing there with iPads in some events going, please, could you do this for us? So we're trying, and it's many hands make life work, guys. So the more people that come, we have more people out there speaking and supporting and joining, it's just gonna make life so much easier for all of us.
Facebook brought me here tonight.
Thank you. It's there, it's going away, young man, you can test, you go on Facebook. Yeah, so part, yeah, so this is part of getting our youth involved, because our youth gotta tell us how to do it, you know, it's TikToks, and help sell our services, guys, because I'm on TikTok, I got the coalition. But we have to, this is things that we have to look at, how do we get that next generation involved, they're not on Facebook, it's the old person's book at this point. So we've got a new generation, and the new generation is a.
Well, we might not even have TikTok soon. Snapchat, though, I think we could.
Snapchat's a big thing, but. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, I don't know how everybody, I know that CPS can be controversial, but for anybody who is in the position where there's a child involved and you feel like you have to call CPS, one of the loopholes that could be beneficial for someone is that if someone does want help and we are worried about a child, CPS does have services for parents that want drug treatment, and they will help them through that. So we've been able to take the opportunity to benefit from that, as even though it hasn't solved everything, that may be a loophole if someone is in the real instance where that fits, that they're worried about the child and they're worried about calling CPS and making it worse, that could be a way to get, if the parent is open to it, then services, and CPS allows to put families back together. So that would be my little loophole, that if it fits, don't be afraid to call if you really are truly worried about a child.
As Matt walks over there was a gentleman over there.
Yeah.
When we heard Jimmy say, I'm sure people's faces kind of made a look when he said Narcan is gonna start at age 5. I don't know if anybody here's ever known a child that accidentally found an opioid, but I had a cousin who her child was 2 and yeah, took it, and thankfully he's alive. But it's to that point, it's not about getting a parent in trouble, because a parent doesn't want their child to find their drugs and do it, so yeah, it's all help.
Good evening, my name is Dick Dean, and I have lived here all my life. I've been involved in education and miracles like coach and so forth, but the point is that everybody here can be immediately involved with the health of our community. We have a vote coming up this next month to build a new hospital. Lord, we need that. When you read today's Columbia-based Herald, you'll see that the governor visited our community and commented about the growth that we are going to be facing in the next 10, 15 years. We're at the heart of just beginning to grow. Also, we have what's important is education is number one, health is number one, and quality of life is number one. So we can all step up and vote and be supportive of the health of our community. And that's what I wanted to come to. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got, what is that? 2-3 more minutes until we want to wrap it up, so, well.
Any more questions? Anything else
I think we should point out strengthening families and PACS programs real quick, just so people know some of the projects we've done.
So some of the projects that we worked on and that we have elected as a coalition to fund, and I'll let Megan speak a little bit more to strengthen families and PACS, but PACS is a program where we focus on the youth at the elementary level of our schools and providing the tools, and it's the prevention, it's those coping tools, it's those good behavior tools, it's that, pause tools, it's all those tools that are going to allow our children to grow healthier and get in front of it before they fall in the river. Strengthening Families is a program where we bring families together that just want to get together through a guided process and have some real conversations. It doesn't have to be families in trouble, it can be families that can be prevented, or it can be families that are struggling. But they are two of one of our greatest focuses on prevention.
Yeah, those are our two actual direct service programs where we're not just providing awareness or a campaign or something, we're actually working with families. Cool thing to mention about PACS. Original PACS was a school program, teachers use it helps with kind of just behavioral regulation. Kids learn how to be responsible and accountable for the way that they feel, the way that they respond, and they're taught the tools that one needs to be able to do that. We have data going back for both programs for about 30 years that show positive outcomes for reducing the likeliness of substance use, reducing the likeliness of suicide, the need for psychiatric services, aggressive behavior, just a whole host of things. So I think it's good to mention a lot of these things that we do under the umbrella of substance use prevention are actually cross-sectional. They help with delinquency, teen pregnancy, and other things as well. A very cool thing about PACS that we are all now offering a parent workshop where we're teaching a set of simple strategies and providing all the materials, what we need to do them. They're very quick, they're very easy to remember, they're very easy to weave into your regular family deal. And it reduces a lot of behavioral issues because of it. Children learn how to control themselves, parents learn kind of what those acceptable lines are. So two great programs. Another thing that we do a lot is community education. So occasionally you'll see us offering classes or presentation opportunities. So I would like to mention that there's another one tomorrow night. If everybody's feeling froggy and wants to do another later evening, we will be at CP Tech tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Laura Stack is here. She's her organization is Johnny's Ambassadors. Johnny is Laura's son who did die by suicide in 2019, I think it was. He started using high potency gas when he was like 14, which eventually led to mental health crisis, and he eventually took his own life. So we will be partnering with the Grant County Suicide Prevention Task Force to put on that tomorrow evening at CB Tech. You can learn a lot. I know I've talked before in front of crowds and I mentioned dabs, and half the people in the room don't know what I'm talking about. This is something we should be aware of. High potency cannabis is a new thing. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, it's not your grandfather's marijuana anymore. That's facts. So Laura's coming with just a whole host of information to sort of explain the ramifications of today's cannabis on the youth brain. It does get a little bit, into brain function, and I know that's not everybody's jam, but it does make it all really make sense, and you do get a sense of the importance of paying attention to that. I mean, I think in this area, especially in the state, we're really kind of flippant about cannabis, and like I said earlier, when it comes to adult use, I have no opinion whatsoever, I don't care what you do. I'm more concerned about what the impacts are on the youth group. So if you want to learn about that, the availability is there tomorrow. Jen, I know you want to say something.
I just want to say she's also really talking about educating our youth at Vanguard in the morning and Mosaic High School in the afternoon. And then to the community parent community event one night. And I can't say enough about her. She's talking about brain function, but he breaks it down where you really understand what's happening there to change their brain forever. They've a lot of kids are becoming shelly from who they once were. So,
They have some really great videos on like the effects of even like caffeine and tobacco and chocolate have on the effects of the brain, because it changes the chemicals, even the developing versus the adult brains. So it's not just necessarily marijuana, it's anything that changes and alters the brain. It's unfortunate that, you know, some people want to just pick one thing. But
that's just what tomorrow's is about.
yeah, there's videos that the high school provide, because when I was subbing, one of the classes, it was the sex ed class, and they actually, the kids had to watch the video, and it was really fascinating to see the effects that even caffeine have on people's brains.
We're in a different world, if you're as old as me, you might remember that statement, you are what you eat, as you are whatever you put in your body, it's that way. Now our kids are most.
Could I add a counterpoint, if there's like the entire cultures, especially like in South America, that believe it vitally important that the developing brain do experience something like a psychedelic mushroom by a certain age to become a good person, or not a good person, but
Yeah, some
different drugs are different drugs.
So we are at 1 minute. We would like to give everybody an opportunity to stop at the booths and talk amongst themselves if they like. But first and foremost, we're going to give another round of applause to our speakers. We're giving ourselves a round of applause because there's a lot of pieces. It matters to us that you show up, whether you show up in person or in Zoom, it always very important to us, and we want to really thank you. We really hope to see you in our meetings. Share the conversation, let people know that we exist. Let people know that this doesn't end tonight. This conversation was just the start. It doesn't stop until next year when we do this again. Okay.
Good job, you guys.
Good night.